All right. Um, Perfect. Okay. Karen, can you tell us if the voice or if the volume is okay on stream? If you can like hear us and everything? Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll just get started. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our first Gaucho Gaming panel. Today we have some great guests with us today. All of them are UCSB alumni or current UCSB students working inside the video game industry. We're kind of trying to cover a wide array of different fields and skill sets. And so yeah, we'll be asking them some questions. If you guys have any questions in stream, just make sure to drop them in chat, and if we have time, we'll try our best to get around to them. Um, but yeah, as of right now, let's just go around and introduce our guests. So why don't we just start off with Brian?
Okay, all right. Hi, I am Brian. I am um, an officer at Gaucho Gaming, but I am also a graphic design intern at Counterlogic Gaming. I have been with Counterlogic Gaming since October of last year, and I will continue to be with them until the end of April.
Awesome. Francisco, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Francisco. I just started at Riot about 3 weeks ago as a global influencer strategist for Valorant and Project L. Previously, I was at Twitter, and I graduated UCSB back in 2020, right? Slowly after the pandemic. And I also majored in global studies. So if anyone's a global studies major, what's up?
Awesome. And then Jasper, go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys. My name is Jasper. Graduated from UC Santa Barbara as a comm major in 2021. Joined over at the Story Mob for about a year before moving over to Gen G right now as a senior coordinator for education partnerships.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. And then, hi everybody. I'm Ethan. I'm on staff for Gaucho Gaming, and I'm just pretty generally interested in going into the video game industry. And so, yeah. Also, apologies for my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather, so that's why my voice is a little bit raspy. Okay, so let's just get into the questions. So, first question. This is for everyone. Why did you decide to pursue a career in gaming, and how did you enter into the industry? So let's go in like reverse order of what we introduce ourselves in. So Jasper, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start from like the very beginning. I was actually born and raised in Korea for about 10 to 11 years. So I kind of grew up in like that PC bound cyber cafe scene, just watching StarCraft, the original StarCraft and the Brood War and the StarCraft 2 all my life. And watching the Sudden Attack, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that FPS game, but it's like the most famous Korean kind of like Counter-Strike. So I grew up watching people play video games. I was always fascinated by how like these professional players are like being featured on TV, and I was like, wow, that sounds so cool. Like I want to be up there. But obviously, my StarCraft skills were nowhere near good to be even on that level. Um, and at the time, the scene wasn't that too developed, so it was just a lot of like small groups just forming their own team, competing in tournaments. And my parents are very old-fashioned Asian parents, so they always are like, stop playing video games. You got to go out, play sports. And my dad is actually a martial arts instructor, so for him, gaming was just non-negotiable. He was just like, you're not getting your PC until you're in college and whatnot. So I had to kind of follow that dream of working in esports until I came to the States. And kind of when I believe it was like in high school, like 2009, like nearing my end of middle school, when right, the League of Legends came out. That's when I was kind of like begging my parents to let me have my own PC to kind of play League of Legends. And so I guess that's when it kind of picked back up on like, wow, like gaming has really like, improved. Maybe I could become professional player just like those people that I saw on TV. Obviously, it didn't happen. I'm not good at League of Legends. And hit 2012 when CS:GO first came out. That's when I was like, wait, I'm actually like not too bad at shooting games. So that's when I started like kind of investing a lot more time in video games. But at the same time, I still didn't have any idea on like getting a job in the industry. I always kind of had a narrow mind that being a professional was the only way to kind of be in this industry. And this all changed in college when I kind of met my Rainbow Six group, and I remember Josh was like reaching out to me on Discord, like, "Hey, I saw you play Rainbow Six Siege. Want to form a team and play?" And that's how I got to know the Gaucho gaming and like, oh, all these stuffs is like available, and people do a lot more than just playing the video game. Um, so yeah, senior year hit, I worked as a Coursera ambassador, and that's when I've kind of dipped my toe into the industry, just meeting people, also like organizing tournaments, just seeing what kind of avenues there are in this industry. And so that's when I really thought, okay, I could actually make a career out of esports, not just playing video games, but doing something that I have a lot of passion about, which is education at the same time. So I love teaching and stuff and coaching. So things just worked out. My formal manager at Coursera is actually my current manager at Gen G. Her name is Eugenia. So she hooked me up with an opportunity to work at Gen G under education. So now here I am, just doing both education and video games. Still nowhere as good as I wanted to be, but yeah, that's just kind of how I got started.
Awesome. Francisco, you want to go next?
Yeah. I guess I'll start from the beginning to like Jasper. I got a tour of the Riot campus back in like 2014, no, 2016, 2017. And it was just the coolest thing ever. And actually walking onto campus every single day now, I just like it just blows my mind. But back then I like knew of League. I was playing it in high school, but never really thought about it as a career up until I saw like obviously like a Rioters and just being surrounded by them. I was like, I want to end up there one day. But I didn't really have a solid framework of how I wanted to do that and how I was going to accomplish that. And going to UCSB, being part of the clubs kind of really helped me like, shape like a framework and like networking with people and kind of like seeing what, potential opportunities there were. I believe TSM came out to our campus like back in 2018 and some of the partnerships folks came out and just like gave a little like panel as well. And that kind of like planted a small seed there. But I think it wasn't really until Team Liquid had invited out a couple members of Gaucho Gaming to the headquarters right before the pandemic. And it was a 2-hour drive. Everyone who wanted to come can go. And I like went, I booked it. And that's where I got to meet everybody from like UCLA, USC, and everybody that like wanted to like have a resume review, talk with some TL staff, and kind of see like where potential opportunities were, which was actually super insightful. One of my mentors, he had just planted like the idea of like staying in partnerships or influencer management, and like that really stuck with me. And then graduating, I did graduate with global studies, and I loved my major so much. But obviously, the pandemic hit. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. Um, so I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe I should do like influencer management. So I took a really small internship where I wasn't really paid very well, but the experience was really, really good. And from there, I realized I did like working with influencers to some capacity, but I needed to do it at a larger scale company. So then I proceeded to work at Stream Elements. For those that know about streaming in OBS, it's like an overlay company with a lot of like different opportunities. I worked as a campaign manager for several months there. I loved it. However, I realized I didn't really love working with influencers to a specific direct contact. And from there, I ended up working at Twitter on the gaming partnerships team. And that's when I really kicked off for me that I definitely wanted to stay in the scene. I have fun doing the work that I really wanted to do. And yeah, I think through the experiences from Gaucho Gaming, UCSB Esports, and like the entire time that I just wanted to pursue it, I realized I had so much fun and I was so passionate about it. And that's kind of what led me to like pursuing a role at Riot is like, I want to have that business perspective, kind of work with influencers, but also really work on really cool activations. And um, yeah, that's kind of what's led me to this moment.
Awesome, perfect. Brian, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I guess I can also start from the beginning. I've always kind of just been interested in video games. Like the first console I ever played was like my uncle's Super Nintendo, and I play like Mario Kart, Star Fox, or like Super Mario Brothers 3. So like gaming has kind of always been like part of my background for like as long as I can remember, even though my parents weren't very happy with that. Funny story, because I know like League of Legends is like the entry point for a lot of people, like for like esports and stuff. My entry point was actually Team Fortress 2. I would like watch like 6v6 or like Highlander, and like that was something that really interested me, and I was like a huge Valve fanboy. Um, so when they announced Dota 2, I was like, yo, I really want to play this game. And I was like just looking online for like any chance of getting a beta key. But I couldn't get a beta key for Dota, so I gave up and I'm like, oh, this League of Legends game looks close enough. I'll just play that instead. But yeah, from there I ended up just only playing League of Legends until like high school, and then I started playing like some CS. But yeah. My start in like esports proper probably also came from the Team Liquid mixer that Francisco mentioned earlier. I was also there, and I like scrapped together this really dinky like portfolio like the night before at 3 a.m. and then I just showed it to their graphic designer because they were doing like portfolio reviews. Like I had no idea what I was doing, but I think Tiffany Peng is her name. She gave me like super good insight on like, okay, like if you want to break into the industry, like here are the kind of things you need. You need to like showcase your best work, blah blah blah, and that like information really helped me. And then from there, like between like UCSB Esports and like a bunch of other stuff, like the Summer Splash collegiate events that we would do, I gained a ton of experience, and like eventually I was able to get the internship I currently have.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go right into the next question. So what does a typical workday look like for you? We'll just kind of stay in this same order. So Jasper, you want to kick it off for us?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm also a little sick, so my voice is not that
No
great.
worries.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of people know, but working at an organization is a lot different than just working for bigger companies. Especially a lot of orgs kind of work in an agency model. So we're very operational and like campaign to campaign based. So it really depends on exactly what kind of campaign that we're expecting to run. So nothing is really the same every day. But if I have to really choose one, there is a program that I run at Gen G, which is the collegiate program with the 15 clubs. I'm very excited to have UCSB as one of our program members. So a lot of these clubs tend to kind of request event support, sponsorships or event support, or even just kind of any kind of internships throughout DMs. And it's funny, college students don't have a working hour. So I'd get DMs at like 2 in the morning. I was expecting an intern an hour. I'm like, yo, let me sleep. But yeah, I mean, it's the work hours are, all over the place working in the esports industry. But usually day to day, it's mostly working with K through 12 as well. So like a lot of curriculum building, especially if there's an event running. So there's like an Astral Clash happening in Vegas this week. Although it's not really my account to handle corporate accounts. Being in a small organizational agency, we just tend to help out a lot of departments too. So I'm actually being sent out to Vegas to kind of handle Evil Genius's team as a team handler, and just being floater, doing IT stuff at the venue at HyperX LAN. But at the same time, next week is another tournament that we're hosting at Eastern Michigan University. So we would have to do outreach, marketing, get stuff approved by the client, get insurance, get media waivers, get quotes from RFPs for production partners. So a lot of stuff that gets done. It's just sometimes it's so crazy that you don't really know what you're doing half the time. You're just kind of going through the checklist. So yeah, I mean, I want to say nothing is the same, although it kind of is, but you just end up doing a lot of different things each day.
For sure, of course. Francisco, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll mostly talk about Twitter since I just started at Riot. I'm still trying to figure out what I am doing. But yeah, so at Twitter, I was on the gaming partnerships team, and most people didn't realize that Twitter does have a gaming department. It also was extremely small, to my surprise, when I joined the team. And the partnerships team was actually our main function was to just kind of be like an account manager for the various gaming brands, esports teams, and like influencers. So my day to day would honestly just be like communicating with any of the partners that you had immediate questions like through email about the product, about some campaigns, or just something that they just want to do something cool on Twitter. Um, and so my day to day really was kind of insight or giving insights to the teams, a lot of the esports teams, and a couple of the brands on like product updates that Twitter had. Everyone loved co-tweets and like getting some of the teams and brands co-tweets access early. I worked on Twitter Drops, which was the shopping functionality. So I got to work with product and dev, as well as various other departments as to just get that off the ground, which is really cool for beta testing back in the summer. A lot of the other partnership related stuff was on the like business end, where I got to just create decks that we would use to send to our business partners that wanted to do advertisement spending on the platform, either through just like the organic stuff we already had, or like more really fun, cool activations that required like a third party to do just cooler activations. One of the things that my team actually got to work on before I was there, as a good example, is if you guys remember, like the LCS gave away a Honda car that was custom, like everything. So my team before I was there, um, they worked with Honda as well as Riot through giveaway. I think the Honda through like a retweeting situation, and then you got selected if it, through DM. So that's the kind of like really cool stuff that I got to work on. As well as like aside from the partnership stuff, we got to do some really cool insights. I got to work with Valkyrie on Behind the Tweets, which was like a video series that was really popular amongst like the regular entertainment industry and music. But we've got to do it with Valkyrie, which is our first female gaming creator, and that was really cool. I worked with a friend who like can select the tweets that she ended up using in the video, so that was really fun. And yeah, another portion was the verifications and all that stuff. My DMs broke at one point when I was at Twitter because people would ask for that all the time. My role was more so working with the official teams for new players that were coming to the scene and just giving them that extra ability and like lift on the platform. Based on like what requirements we had. And then lastly, I actually did work with a little bit with influencers on the monetization program called Amplify. Not a lot of people knew about it, but it was a very small program similar to like TikTok and YouTube where you can make money doing ads on your videos. So that was most of it at Twitter. Just also dealing with like DMCA strikes, monetization issues, brand safety. And at Riot, I'm really excited for my role. I'm working more so on the Valorant side of things. With influencers that want to like just do really cool events and just kind of strategize that around like VCT launches and working with various departments on like how do we execute that, what do we want to do. And yeah, I'm super excited to announce that there's a lot of really cool things around certain events in the coming months. And so now my team's in like the ideation phase of thinking, what do we want to do, what are we going to execute, what influencers want to work with, what message are we sending. And yeah, just kind of like doing Riot's main focus of like being the most like focused game, player-based focused company in the world. So it's a lot. I'm still learning, but I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Brian?
Yeah, so day to day for me kind of just looks like, I guess like there's a lot of like game day graphics that we have to make for socials. So I handle a good chunk of those. So like if you see like on CLG's Twitter, like, oh, like this match is happening today, like chances are I probably made that graphic. But besides that, I have a lot of other stuff I work on. For example, I have experience with motion graphics, so sometimes I help make like the assets for videos, like because we have like a YouTube channel and there's like video content on that channel. So like for stuff like transitions or like intros, I've done work on those as well. And then I think one of the nice things about CLG particularly is like even though you're an intern, they kind of treat you just like straight up like a full employee. So Greg meets with us, our CEO, he meets with us, and then like at the beginning, he was like, "Hey, so like, is there like anything you guys want to get done like before your internship ends?" And I pitched a project to him, and so like now we're kind of like working on that, which is like really cool.
Awesome. All right. We're gonna go into our next question, which is, what is the biggest challenge you faced in your career, and how did you deal with it? Jasper, you wanna start it off?
Yeah, I can give a pretty good couple examples. I think I mentioned that we run a lot of a campaign to campaign basis. So there's not honestly every kind of hurdle feels like the biggest challenge at the moment until
For
like when you get to the recap phase, you're like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. But so for like for example for HNG, when we're running like LAN tournaments, it turns out the wirings are kind of off, the circuits are not in the right way, so the games get delayed for a couple hours. You end up costing the production partner tens of thousands more dollars because you were delayed for a few hours, right? And during that moment, you're just like, crap, I have to move like 20 computers upstairs. I have to reallocate. I have to figure out which wiring works. So that that kind of challenges kind of comes with events, with especially LAN events. But I think it's really important for you to kind of realize that there's not much you can do other than just kind of to come down and just kind of rethink the situation. It's already going to be delayed. It doesn't hurt to get delayed another 30 minutes to an hour. Just keep thinking on what the best practice and best approach is at the time. Or even when you don't have, when you don't end up getting expected attendees for a big event that you're organizing, sometimes it's more about the quality of the attendance and the quality of the experience more so than the numbers. So even if you were expecting 500 and you end up getting 100 people, rather than just being sad about it, you actually save a lot more money, ordering less food and whatnot. So you use that money to kind of reinvest into the people that are there to provide a better experience, right? When I was over at the Story Mob, I think this could be a pretty good, I guess, talk for people who are majoring in comm as well that are wanting to go into PR. There are a lot of times where our clients, I won't say who because it's pretty confidential, and if you guys don't know it means we did a good job at protecting this PR. We had a couple incidents with a couple big orgs where the streamers and the influencer kind of got caught smurfing or doing something bad, and the whole Twitter was on fire. And it's a very reactive situation, way outside our working hours, and we would just have to make sure that everything kind of calms down in a nice manner. No one's picking up that news the next day. We work with journalists, and oftentimes, sometimes when you join a new firm, there's going to be a chance where if your manager just leaves, literally like the next day you join, right? So actually, when I was in my old firm, current my manager at the time for a Riot account actually left within a few weeks, and so I was kind of left alone to do the entire BCT operations for 2021. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know any journalists in NA. I didn't know the process, and sometimes it can get really overwhelming. But just realize that your entire company, your people are there to support you, to help you out. You guys are a team together. I think it's really all about you taking the initiatives to ask questions, even if it's the same question like 20 times. Like just get that step right, because you don't want to just mess up, without asking questions. So I think, yeah, just being proactive, ask a lot of questions, even if it's the same thing. Everybody in the industry is used to it. So yeah.
Awesome. Francisco, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I'll probably go based on like the job order, but yeah, at Stream Elements, since my role there was like as a campaign creator manager, the biggest difficulty there was work-life balance. Anyone that works around influencers know that there is no work-life balance, and I like really want to be genuine with that. You kind of have to really like set boundaries between you and the creators, what time you're going to get messages. I also had to cover LATAM and parts of EMEA, which is Europe. And so my schedule was all over the place. There was times where I would have to do like I'd have to like watch the 2 hour like sponsored stream like at 2 in the morning, and I wanted to just like and just fall off a cliff. But you had to do what you had to do, and in influencer management, like definitely set boundaries. Maintaining like a pretty social life for yourself, and also like literally just getting up and walking away from your desk and just taking a break is my best advice for working in influencer management. It's really rewarding, it's really fun. I actually got to meet a lot of the creators I worked with a year and a half ago at TwitchCon, which just like my heart like blew up when I got to meet a couple. So it's definitely rewarding, but it is also very challenging there. Another part at Twitter, I would just say I was super afraid of making mistakes. I had never really thought I was going to break into tech, with like Twitter and the social media companies, and so I was really afraid to make mistakes. But I had a really great manager that would always take any mistakes that I had and turning into a learning lesson. So I'm grateful for really good management there. And a little insider, there are emojis on Twitter. As you guys know, hashtag something would sometimes prop up an emoji, right? So I had actually broken the world's emoji for Worlds 2020. So it actually stopped working halfway through Worlds on the final day. And it turned into a pretty good learning lesson. And yeah, we debriefed and everything, but I just had questions in my inbox as to, why did the emoji stop working, and just being able to handle those kind of situations and being able to tell your manager like, hey, I messed up, like this is what happened, and just kind of going through the process as to making sure that never happened again. Well, it won't happen again because I'm not there anymore, but I will definitely keep that in mind next time. Don't know about any challenges yet at Riot. There's a lot of information to digest, so I'm really going through it. But overall, my experience just trying to find a career in gaming is one is imposter syndrome. Like everyone has it, but it's more like being able to own it over time and realizing, yes, like people need to take a chance on me. I might not be here and might not be the best fit or whatever. But honestly, like once you make it through the interview process and you're there, the team that you got brought onto, like they saw potential in you, they wanted you, and kind of like turn that like insecurity into like and make it empowering, because that'll change your perspective in the first 6 months dramatically and really hopefully like really lift you in the role immediately as you start. So yeah.
Awesome. Brian?
Yeah, for me, I would say like the biggest challenge was probably just getting a position to begin with. I had spent a lot of time just primarily basically just working for free, right? Between the collegiate, like UCSB esports stuff and like the intercollegiate stuff like Summer Splash. Um, I applied to like so many different places, and the only place, well, I got an interview with EG. I didn't make it past the interview stage. I got declined by Cloud9 within 5 minutes of sending my application.
Oh,
Um, and then Dignitas just straight up ghosted me. They just ghosted me. I was like, I don't know if you guys follow the LCS right now, but they're not exactly the best team right now. So when Dignitas ghosted me, like that kind of hurt my pride a bit. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Um, but yeah, I eventually did get a position at CLG, which was really good. And another thing, like I think for graphic designers, like work-life balance isn't nearly as bad because like we just have to make stuff by certain deadlines, right? So the work is kind of divided into like manageable chunks, and then we all take care of different responsibilities. So that's not too bad, especially because like it's not like we have to do like live coverage between like time zones or anything. That I think would probably be like the biggest issue in terms of like work-life balance. I will say though, yeah, that getting a job part is really hard. Yeah,
fair
that was
enough.
definitely the biggest challenge for me.
Fair enough. Okay, we're gonna go into the next question. So next question is, what do you envision gaming to look like in the future? That just industry, the community, and just kind of tech, I guess, in general. I guess this is kind of like a two-parter. I guess what you envision and kind of uh, what you would like to see almost, as I guess being kind of two-parter questions. So Jasper, you wanna take us off?
Yeah, I think I'll probably give a really biased answer here just because I'm at Gen G. And this is something that, even our CEO has been repeating. I actually had the chance to chat with him when I was a student, senior year, when I was networking, trying to get a job in the industry. I hit Arnold up. We got a coffee in downtown LA. And this was something that he said was he literally foresaw this coming through like 2 years ago. Was that a lot of organizations are just not gonna survive through this recession. A lot of corporates are in a hard time where they don't want to sponsor gaming right now. They're on a budget too, right? So especially if your companies are just kind of barely surviving off of partnerships and revenues coming from other corporates, they're gonna die out. They're gonna run out of money, especially with the player salary. It's crazy. So a lot of orgs, I think, are trying to find a different ways of making revenues, making money. What Gen G is doing is literally education, right? So we have the GGA program in Korea, which is we have like more than 2,000 students, and we're expanding that over to the United States right now with the team. So I think a lot of orgs are going to die out. A lot of mid to lower tier ones that are just being formed, unless they have a very good source of revenue kind of secured, unless they got a lot of good VC backed up. But yeah, that's kind of how I see a lot of orgs turning into coming years. And in terms of just like the industry in general, it's not dying. I don't know if who's saying esports is dying. I heard it a few times. It's actually growing, which is very surprising despite whatever's happening in the economy. But Olympic sports, yeah, I'm sure you guys saw the news that they're actually it's kind of funny. I was actually laughing at the Taekwondo part because they're not even sparring; they're just putting on gears and just kicking the air, which I think is very stupid. But if it works, it works, right? I guess. So with Olympic sports becoming a thing, and I think the whole meta, the what do you call it? That
The metaverse.
exactly metaverse, artificial intelligence, and whatnot. I think it will be a pretty big factor in the future with gaming. I think I foresee it kind of merging in some way or another. I don't think anybody has figured out the best way to kind of incorporate it together, but I think if someone can kind of find a way to put me in a Rainbow Six Siege map and I'm actually shooting and playing, I would pay money to play that. I would love to see an esports out of that too. And I'm just a big fitness guru, so I really want to see more of like sports side on esports too. So even if it's just shooting games, if a person is actually moving around and like doing actual moving, actual sport kind of stuff, um, it's something that I kind of envision seeing that I want to see in the future. But yeah, it's hard to say, but I think it's becoming more advanced and more intelligent, and if people can start figuring it out how to incorporate the advanced technology with current gaming, um, will be the next step for a lot of people. But I don't think anybody has figured that out yet, so we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. Francisco?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna piggyback off of Jasper and like the survivability of esports companies, kind of being on the back end on the partnerships and sales side of things. I think it really comes down to like how well these teams are able to market themselves to VCs and other potential brands for the partnerships funding. We have seen that there's a couple of esports team that like lost one or two major like team, and because of that, layoffs happen and like they aren't able to pick up like the top talent anymore. And we've seen when esports teams doing a great job of maintaining themselves, and obviously we've seen times that like they really rely on one source of revenue. To build wealth in the United States, like you have to have multiple sources. You can't rely on one. And so I definitely see the test of like these teams are going to be having to really realize where the revenue sources are going to come from merch to partnerships to like everything else, and reevaluating even their players' contract salaries. Like it's become really unsustainable, and so they really need to figure out where that money is going to come from. And there's many different sources. Like you could make money off of Twitter, and we saw the teams that really wanted to put that effort forward in working with us and making extra money through advertisements, and we saw the teams that didn't. And so I think that really stands out to me, and I hope that all the teams will manage to survive. But obviously, I think lining with Jasper, like they won't. And then secondly, I'm pretty biased towards creators and influencers. I think that we've seen in the past couple of years like the rise of like these like moguls, such as Mogul Moves, and as well as like Mr. Beast and Tarek, and just so many of these creators that really able to mass like a pretty good chunk of wealth that are now reinvesting into their own brand, their own orgs. And even we can see with OTK as an org, like they've been able to like reinvest in different like into I believe I forgot what their computer company is called, but they're able to like not only be a content creation org, but have some like other small businesses that they're running. And I think that's really the future. And they call it the creator economy is what is going to be sustainable for creators in the future. And we see that creators are kind of recession proof. Like brands still need to market, brands still need to do some outreach and have their product and whatever they're selling out there. And it really hasn't slowed down with creators. So it's exceptionally important for brands, orgs, and even publishers like Riot to really capitalize on that. That's part of the reason why I'm here, is to make sure that we are able to capitalize on these opportunities and make sure that the players, influencers, and the community overall are excited and happy, because that means reinvesting into the games in some capacity. And lastly, and also super biased, I'm just super excited to see what Riot does with all the games that are in development and what comes out. I'm really hoping for some sort of League RTS at some point, because my roots are always in StarCraft. So yeah.
Awesome. Brian?
Yeah, I'm just gonna also piggyback off of what um, Francisco and Jasper were saying. Basically, yeah, there is a bit of a problem in terms of sustainability in esports, I think. And honestly, I'm a little more cynical on that end. Like, people were like, oh, as long as there's like a big backing company, it'll be fine. But like, recently we saw with like the Guard, who were owned by a pretty big like entertainment org, like the entire like shut down entirely, right? So it's just like I feel like going into the future, like orgs will have to find a way to have like guaranteed multiple sources of income. And like personally, I'm not entirely sure stuff like just merch enough is like enough, right? So I don't know how esports companies will tackle that challenge, but it's definitely like an elephant in the room that has to be addressed because like ultimately, right, sponsor money isn't just free money. They are investing in esports because they expect like a return on investment. And if they eventually come to the conclusion that they're just funneling all their resources into these orgs and not getting anything in return, they're gonna pull out, right? So that's like my biggest concern right now, where it's just like this, like with between like player salaries, but also just the fact that the orgs themselves aren't the best at creating money. Like there could be some sustainability issues there.
Yeah.
In terms of like, oh, sorry. In terms of like wider gaming, personally, I think it's been getting a little better, but something that's kind of I've always observed throughout my life, and I guess it's kind of like inevitable if you guys are like familiar with like video game history at all. I'm kind of like big on that kind of stuff, but basically because of the video game crash in the 1980s, Nintendo was like the main like video game developer to kind of like reinvigorate the video game market. And the way in which they did that was by basically marketing video games as like toys for like little kids, like for like men, right? For boys, right? And so like I feel like there's a lot of like kind of like even now like a lot of like boys club kind of mentality ingrained into gaming that personally like I think like we should see video games more like just general entertainment, right? Like there aren't really like those sort of like limitations on like gender or like that kind of like masculinity crap when it comes to stuff like movies or like books, right? Like if you want to read it or watch it or listen, you just do it, right? But I feel like there's still a lot of that going on in gaming. So hopefully in the future we could see less of that. But I think we are getting there. We're definitely making strides in that direction. So that's good. And I guess in terms of just like general gaming stuff, I want to play Project L. I
Same.
want to play Project L. Right. Give
Same.
me Francisco. Give me
Soon,
Project L, man.
soon. Just watch my timeline, and eventually you'll see something pop up.
Yeah,
That's all I can
yeah.
tell you now.
Fair
'Cause,
enough.
like, yeah, I played Rising Thunder a bit. When that was a thing. Basically, the people who are making Project L right now, they worked on this little game called Rising Thunder. But when I heard that they were acquired by Riot, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna see a league fighting game, and then like I've been waiting on this for like 6 years. I don't know, like a really long time. I just really want to play that game now. And then like another thing I noticed, right, is just like Riot makes games approachable for some reason somehow, right? So like I remember like when I was like a freshman in college, we had like I knew like four people who played CS:GO, right? And like when I was tired of League, I'd be like, "Hey guys, let's play CS:GO," and like it would just be like me and those like four other people, right? And then Valorant comes out, and all of a sudden everyone is an expert on CS:GO, and it's just like, where were all these people before? What are you talking about? You play CS? That's a lie. Get out of here, right? Like so, like I'm pretty sure once Project L comes out, we're gonna start seeing all these like tag fighter people come out of the woodworks and be like, "Oh yeah, I love Marvel. Oh yeah, Skullgirls," and I'll be like, where were you? Where were you for like the last 6 years? Hello, you know. So yeah, I want it. Project L, give it to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. So what, if any, advice would you give to current UCSB students who maybe want to break into the gaming industry in general? Jasper, you want to start us off?
Yeah. I guess there's like two main things. One is do not tunnel vision. Just like I did when I was young, right? Just going through watching StarCraft, thinking that there's only one way to become successful in the industry is to become a professional player. That's definitely not the case. Obviously, that's one way, but there's a lot of other revenues you can do. So yeah, I mean, to not tunnel vision, there's a lot of cases where people go into a different industry and come over to esports after a year or two, right? After developing some skills, just because esports industries, as we know, is pretty tight right now. We see a lot of layoffs. We don't see a lot of hiring. So don't think of this as the only way to kind of lose your chance to get into the esports. But think of it as another way to just kind of build your experience elsewhere, in a different company, and actually take that chance to kind of see what you want to develop in terms of your skills, right? Also take that time to kind of start figuring out what exactly you want to do in the industry that you need to build your skills on. So if you want to, go into TOing, tournament organizing, start building your own project. Start hosting some events that are even local, even 4 teams is okay. Learn about the brackets, learn about the rules, learn about outreaching, marketing. All that stuff comes with it, right? As well as making sponsorship decks to ask for sponsors for your events. All these skills that can come really useful when you're actually applying to the esports industry are the skills that are going to set you apart to other people. Second one is be very proactive. And I don't want to like brag or anything, but like I was like dying to just meet people in college, trying to like, oh, I need to get a job, I need to make money. So I was like asking people how I can meet up with them, if I can buy them coffee, just like how I met up with Arnold, right? And now he's my CEO. Like, put a thought in, in Kentucky we would go out drinking together. It's like a crazy turn of events. Who would have thought 2 years ago when I was, UCSB student meeting up with the CEO of one of the top 10 orgs in the world. So yeah, a lot of people in this industry isn't mean. I'm sure they're all mean people, but if you're very polite and just nice and eager to kind of meet people, people out here are willing to help you out. At least that was my experience. People will respect you if you respect them, right? So just be proactive, reach out to a lot of people, ask questions. You have Francisco here, you have Brian here, you have all these great people here that you can ask questions to who went to UCSB. Um, so yeah, take this chance to really just start increasing your network, ask questions, and figure out what you want to do, and start building your projects and skills around it. And I'm sure when you're actually applying to an esports job, you're gonna stand out really well.
Awesome. Francisco?
Yeah, just gonna echo what Jasper said. I think the biggest advice that I got was trying to figure out what you don't like. So I felt like I was a person that always had multiple hats in terms like I felt like I was pretty decently okay at a lot of different things, which makes it hard finding a career and a major. I switched 3 times, is a mess. And so with gaming, I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. But working on LANs with Gaucho Gaming and just working on like the SoCal events that Brian and I worked on, I really liked that. I liked working with brands, and so that really pushed me towards partnerships. I did TOing the first event that we had, Brian. I hated it. And so I never want to do TOing ever again. I like socials. I can meme, but I can't write. I can't type. I'm really bad at grammar, so that was not for me. And so I realized after the TL event that partnerships was the way that I wanted to like pursue. And so that just was a trial and error process. And that's kind of like the realm that I ended up sticking. So best piece of advice, figure out what you don't like because it'll eventually guide you to figuring out what you do like. And then second is going back to networking. I'm super introverted and super scared sometimes, most of the times, and my extroverted self really doesn't come out that often. And so that made it really hard to network. But honestly, you just have to put yourself out there. You just kind of have to like not give a shit and just, send out those DMs, reach out to people on LinkedIn. Um, I think back at school, I had like a proposal for TSM. And so I connected with someone through LinkedIn. I sent out probably 100 messages and like 2 people replied. And one of those persons ended up being like one of my like favorite mentors in the industry that at the time was the director of partnerships at TSM. However, they were leaving right when I messaged them, so that didn't really work out. But I still consider him a really, really good friend. He's given me a lot of advice. And so you never know where those LinkedIn messages, Twitter messages might lead. Also, I'm super biased. If you don't have a Twitter and you want to work in the gaming industry, you better make one. I know Brian was really against it for the longest time, but he's finally alive and active on the platform. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunities on Twitter, specifically to follow your favorite content creators, see what's up, also see industry people, see some job postings, maybe interact with their, with their tweets. And yeah, just social media is so powerful. Like you might as well use it. We're Gen Z. We're not boomers. You need really to learn to utilize it to your best advantage. And like Jasper said, like you never know who might be your next boss just because you connect with them like years in advance or years years ago. So please put your best extroverted self, send those messages, and yeah.
Awesome. Brian?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback again, piggyback. I can't speak today. But just to like piggyback off of what Jasper and Francisco were also saying, like, yeah, connections are like super important. I feel like in part the reason why I was able to get my CLG like internship was because of connections. Like, I'd actually missed the deadline on the internship application process at first, because well, I made an application, right? But I ultimately didn't turn it in because they're like, oh, this internship is LA only, like not remote. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna commute 3 to like whatever hours every week just to have an internship. Like it's just not gonna be feasible for me in Santa Barbara. So I didn't apply. No, I like literally like a week later, I found out. Oh yeah, so they do like remote internships sometimes, and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like kicking myself for that. But because I knew someone who was already an intern at CLG, like later down the road, like they offered me like to put my like I guess like application into the system. They're like, hey, like you do good work. You wanna get in here? And I'm like, hell yeah, put me in, right? So connections are definitely really big. And like Francisco was saying, if you want to work in esports, you need a Twitter. Like I fucking hate saying this, but like Twitter is basically the LinkedIn of esports, which is really cursed, especially now with like the Elon Musk stuff. But like we haven't found a good alternative, so we stick with Twitter. And like I feel like most of our engagement on social media does come from Twitter. So if you want to work in esports, you basically need a Twitter, and this is coming from someone who does not use social media ever in any sort of like capacity whatsoever. The only like social media thing I use is Twitter. So yeah.
Fair enough. I am also a huge advocate for LinkedIn. I reached out to what is it, Riot Dev, and that's how I got my Riot Gun Buddy and Riot Ward. So, huge advocate for LinkedIn. Now we're going to transition into some of our viewer questions. It's going to depend on time how many we're able to get through, but if anyone in the stream has any more questions, feel free to drop them in and we'll try our best to get through them. So our first question is, as someone with no experience in the gaming industry, what do you think is the most important quality for someone who's looking to get into the industry? Jasper, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I guess the most important quality is being able to, I guess, the willingness to learn and take initiatives. I think that just goes a really long way. Nobody will expect you to be good at something as an intro level position. I mean, unless you're applying for like a director position, right? And they would expect you to know everything. But as someone coming with no experience, I'm sure your resume will literally reflect that you have not a lot of experience, right? But that's totally okay because what really matters is a lot of those interviews, and that's where you can really show what you're about, what kind of person you are. Nobody wants to work with someone who's talented but are boring and not fun to work with, right? I'd rather teach, someone that's lower than me a thing or two about esports rather than to work with someone who knows everything or like very cocky, arrogant, not respectful and whatnot, right? So I guess the important quality is like your personality and just how you interact with other people, and just the fact that you are willing to just learn on your own time to get better at something, in order to provide value to your team will go the most long way.
Awesome. Francisco?
What was the question?
As someone with no experience in the gaming industry, what would you say is the most important quality for someone who's looking to get into the industry?
Yeah, echoing Jasper, I think the thing that's made me stand out in a couple of my interviews is that I was told that like the energy and the passion just what's the word?
Resonated?
Resonated with me. Because like, I mean, if you talk to anybody or like happen to go on a date and it goes really well, right? What are the vibes that you get? Like you want to talk to the person again, you want to see them again. In the interview, you're actually interviewing is kind of like dating. You kind of have to have a vibe check and see if you make it to the next round, next date, whatever. Or at least that's how I saw it in the job search process. And so a lot of the times when you get your first initial interviews, or at least like past one first, second round, usually the last rounds is just literally seeing if you're a good fit. With Riot, one of the most important part of the interview process is the values and really resonating with Riot's values. And they have a whole dedicated process and interview section for it. And a lot of the times it's not just about being like, giving the answer that they want to hear. It's them listening to you and wanting to see that true authentic self. Riot's notorious for being part of the interview process or having a very long interview process. And after going through it, I understand why. It's because many people follow that same kind of like culture and align with those same values. And I think that also resonates with a lot of the esports companies and gaming publishing is that they want to find people that really resonate with their games, with their audience, and with their fans. And so just be your true authentic self, be passionate, don't fake it, really apply for the roles that you really want to be part of and are excited for because they will see that in the new process. They will know that. And yeah.
Awesome. Brian?
Yeah, just definitely echoing what everyone else has already said. It's just really about like a willingness to learn and like having that drive to like accomplish the things that are expected of you, I think. But also networking. You should. I think that was like my big like if like there's one thing that I would like go back and fix, it'd probably be like yeah, I wish I like started networking more sooner because I feel like that's something that actually does like help you a lot in general. Also, at least for me, as like a graphic designer, you have to have. I feel like you have to have like a really strong portfolio. In esports, you're never really just a graphic designer, right? Especially because like not every org has like dedicated positions for stuff like motion graphics and like normal graphic design, blah blah blah. Like there's not a lot of distinction there. So like for me, I think what made me stand out compared to like other applicants was just like having that sort of like large Swiss Army knife of a tool set where it's like, yeah, I can make graphics, but I can also make logos and I can also make stream assets and I can also edit videos, blah, blah, blah. So like having that sort of like versatile, like basically being able to like make a niche for yourself, I think is also kind of important. Just being like, okay, so like here's all the stuff that I can bring to you guys. Because ultimately, there's a lot of different ways of describing the interview process, right? Like Francisco is like, oh, it's kind of like dating. I kind of see it like you're like pitching yourself. You're like selling yourself, right? And you're like, here are all the great things you get if you hire me. That's kind of what you have to do, I think.
Yeah, fair enough for sure. And then our next question is from our president, John Ho. He asks, how do you regain motivation to apply, connect, and etc. after experiencing burnout or even rejection? Jasper?
Yeah, that's actually very, very common, especially in house orgs, that a lot of friends just actually outright quit after being burnt out. I mean, I worked like 8 weekends in a row. I haven't had actually I had 2 weekends off out of the past 8 weekends. Like I'm traveling to, Vegas this weekend for work, Michigan to next weekend. You really either have a, you really have to have a passion for what you do, and really have to like it. Otherwise, there's no really, at least for me, other way to justify this motivation and desire to get better and keep working. I feel really accomplished just doing what I do for K through 12 in education. Like I grew up, doing taekwondo. Like I had like 5 years of just teaching experience in taekwondo. So I'm all about, giving back to the students, making sure that we could guide them the right way. And I think it's a really cool thing to do in gaming, where we just kind of incorporate their passion for gaming and turning it into their soft skill development. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem just working all weekends, like working 12 hours a day. It's totally normal for me just because that passion is there, and I feel really accomplished doing what I do. So, but it's very common to see a lot of people getting burnt out, not being able to have that work-life balance. It's very common. So I really want to urge your guys to really figure out what you want to do in life and if esports is really the right thing, because it's not all about video games and playing. I rarely play now. So yeah, really just find out what you want to do. And being burnt out is real in this industry, especially. So really figure out what else you like to do in the free time. Like I only gym, so I work, gym, maybe play a game or two, and then go sleep, and the cycle continues. But I get a lot of joy from doing what I do. So um, yeah, I don't really have a good solution to burnout other than make sure you have your close friends, make sure you have your hobby, and just be proud of what you do and the work you put in.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Francisco?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the perspective of like applying for jobs and just getting rejected. So yeah, I think into the pandemic was not great for looking for jobs, and I was just looking for that one experience that would hopefully put me over the edge, which was Stream Elements. But for that, I was unemployed for about 7 months, just doing some online events and other side things to keep me motivated was really really fun. Um, but the burnout from applying and getting rejected sucks so fucking much. And so I kind of developed like a little routine after a couple of weeks. For me, it was obviously like going on LinkedIn and Indeed, and I realized that the best thing was to do for me was to wake up like kind of early, like 8 or 9, apply for 2 to 3 hours, and then stop for the rest of the day. Like go do something else, go to the gym, go do something proactive, and just take it day by day is the way that I kind of overcame that hurdle, because just getting rejection after rejection, even after Twitter, it was a shorter break, but I still also got a lot of those. And I learned from my mistakes back early pandemic that helped me kind of like stay myself for the past like 3 months after Twitter. And that really, really helped to have some sort of routine, dedicate some time to like looking for work and networking in between, and that really like was able to kind of like soften the blow and really just kind of pick myself up from like getting laid off by Elon Musk. But overall, just having like a routine and really figuring out like a hobby in the meantime takes or takes you back and makes you, it really grounds you from being gaming, because it is exhausting being at a computer screen whether you're working or gaming. So make sure to just kind of like have a routine for yourself and figure out when you need time to step away from everything.
Awesome. Brian?
Um, Honestly, I have a kind of a weird take on this. I don't believe in motivation. Like, it's just like if you have the energy to do something and you like want to do it, you'll do it. But the thing is, like, depending on like how much you want to do something, like that, the amount of energy it takes to do that thing will like increase, right? So like, if you really don't want to do something, even if it's like something simple, like the amount of like battery it takes for you to do that thing is going to be more, right, compared to like something you actually enjoy doing. So I guess like the first thing you would do is like to like reevaluate, like, is this something you really want to do? Like Jasper is saying, like, because like you have to be okay with doing this kind of work for a really long time. But also I think another thing that's really important, and like honestly it gets neglected a lot even outside of esports, is just like self-care, right? And really making sure that like, okay, you get like a good night's sleep, you're eating well, right? Like for me specifically, it's about like setting really strong boundaries. Like I try not to do any like CLG work before 10 a.m. after 6 p.m. because those are our work hours, right? So I try to set those like boundaries initially, and like if I do have to break them, I try not to make it like a habit where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm constantly working way more than I should, because like you shouldn't have to, right? In the interest of like taking care of yourself, you really need to like have those like boundaries set. You really need to like be on top of like, okay, did I eat today? Did I get good sleep today? You know, that kind of stuff. I think it's like self-care in general is just like really important.
Awesome. Awesome. We have two more questions. Are you guys okay with going just a little bit over to answer them?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay. Okay, perfect. This next one is addressed specifically to Brian. How has your experience been with the creative side of the gaming industry?
For CLG specifically, it's been really great. Or actually, I guess I can like back up. because I was basically like the only graphic designer for Gaucho Gaming and UCSB Esports, I got like full creative control. I get to just like do whatever, and then because I'm like the person who makes all the graphics, everyone just has to do it,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah. So that's great. But if you're like working on a team like CLG, I think like how much control you get definitely depends on like where you are. Like I've heard with some places you're kind of just like working off of a template and just using that template ad nauseum. At CLG, there is a lot of template work, but I also get to do a lot of my own work, which is really great. So yeah, I think it will definitely depend on like where you are, for sure.
Fair enough. Okay. And then our last question is, if you could do it over again, what would you change from getting the job to the job itself, and what are your, I guess, plans for the future? Kind of a lot in that one, but Jasper, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. I also spent a year interning with zero pay for a startup company based in New York, with no product. And I was a social media marketing person, specialist, creating content ideas, KPIs were all numbers. Weren't hitting it. We had no service or product to showcase, and they were just pushing me to make content, and it would like burn me out. And that's when I realized like social media was not my thing, and that kind of helped me kind of put my track back into esports. So if I were to really go back and change something, I probably would not have taken that. I didn't realize in California, no pay internship was against the law. But thank God this company was based in New York, so I guess it was okay. But that felt really like a big waste of time. But at the same time, I feel like all the stuff that you do when you're in your 20s, early 20s, just comes with experience. If I didn't get to try that, who would have known that I may have been stuck with a social media job in the industry and feel miserable waking up every day dreading my work. So I wouldn't really necessarily go back to change anything. Um, but yeah, I take a lot of experience that I've done, even if it's like a big failure, as something of a good lesson and something to not do it again ever. And I want to remind to other people to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you're accepting an internship or a job. Make sure you ask for the job description. Make sure get an example of what you do on a daily basis, just so you get a good idea. Ethan, sorry, what was the second part of the question? I know it
And
was
then the second part was kind of, what are your plans, I guess, for the future?
Yeah, obviously to become, manager, director at Gen G, continue work, esports, education, gaming and education and whatnot. We had a lot of cool opportunities coming up in Brooklyn area as well. So I was actually over in New York 3 weeks ago talking to the Department of Education. And they're one of the largest education districts. So if something could, were to happen with Gen G, I think that'd be really cool. But really just want to focus on underserved communities, just making sure that we provide the same value of education to other people, just making sure that we turn all these kids' passion for Minecraft, Roblox into, learning soft skill development so they can get a job outside. Really passionate about that, and I guess just get better in Valorant and Rainbow, and get big, I gym a lot, so hopefully I'll be able to hit 3 plates on bench soon. That's the
Okay.
goal.
All
Yeah,
right,
not
all
much
right.
else.
Francisco?
Damn, 3 plates. That's a lot. I could really do one. For me, I'm actually really satisfied with how my work experiences have gone so far. Like, I've taken big L's, but I've also had pretty good W's. But the one thing I do regret from Twitter specifically, being in a physical office, I was remote, but I could also go to the office in LA a couple times, was I was just so shy to talk to people all the time. I felt like there was so many different connections I could have had, a lot of people that I could have interacted with. Especially at Twitter, everyone was really, really friendly. And it's just my biggest regret not going to the office more, and interacting with everybody. And I should have forced my coworkers to go in the office with me, but they didn't want to really go. And yeah, because you never know what's gonna happen. No one could have predicted what Elon was gonna do, right? And so I felt like so disappointed once that happened because I was like, oh, I could have gone to really connect with people on a deeper level. I could have realized what they did more, maybe found a different career path. But overall, I think like don't take anything for granted is overall what I learned. No matter where you are, you never know again who you might connect with in the future. If you get coffee with someone, that might be your CEO or something like that. You really never know. So never take something for granted. And then what my future plans are. Well, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing at Riot.
Fair enough.
But I'm super excited for VCT Japan, which was announced a while ago. I will be going. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the influencers and a bunch of other activations. And then Challengers in LA has also been announced this past weekend. So we'll be doing something here in LA. And yeah, I'm just super excited to travel and figure out what that looks like, and super excited for Project L, Brian. So yeah.
Brian, you wanna?
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm like high key like blessed because like 99% of like my experience comes from like Francisco. Like he basically like single-handedly created UCSB Esports, and then like I did the graphics for that, and then he was talking about like how he had a connection with like the former head of like communication or like partnerships at TSM, and I also got a freelance job from that, and then like him setting up the intercollegiate stuff with like the UCLA people and whatnot also like gave me a ton of experience. So like I kind of got lucky in terms of just like the amount of opportunities are basically just handed to me on a silver platter. So like if I didn't have all of that, I would probably just focus on like making those opportunities myself or just like reaching out to people, right? Like Francisco said, like you cannot afford to be like super shy in this industry. You have to be willing to talk to people. You have to be willing to like make those connections. You have to make a Twitter, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say like if I had to do it all over again, I would probably start looking to set up my sort of like infrastructure of connections sooner because I feel like that would have benefited me a lot more and maybe I could have found an internship or like job sooner. But honestly, like all things considered, I'd say like how things went for me is pretty optimal. Like I really like my position at CLG. Like I feel like we get a good chunk of agency even though we're an internship. Like yeah, it's good. And plans for the future, quite frankly, like I do like esports, right? But I think one of my bigger passions, like growing up, especially, was like game development stuff. So if I can find a way to pivot into game development, I would definitely take that. But also at the same time, like I don't think like what's it called? Like I wouldn't mind just like working in esports because like having a division between like my like hobby, which would be like game development, and like my job is also like not a bad thing, I think. So like if I end up just like kind of going bouncing around different esports orgs, like I honestly wouldn't mind that either. But we'll see. So yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, with that, looks like we ran through all of our questions. Thank you so much to our panelists and all of our viewers watching. That kind of concludes our panel. So thank you again, guys. Yeah, that's kind of it from me.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thank
All right.
you.